They call it the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, a name that sounds promising, but in Washington, names often hide the truth. This bill, passed in May 2025, is over 1,000 pages long, packed with promises and potential pitfalls. It claims to extend Trump tax cuts, boost border security, reform entitlements, and promote energy development. On paper, it's a conservative wish list. But whose life does it really improve? We need to look past the branding and dig into the details. Does it deliver on conservative principles or just pay lip service? We'll break down what's inside, what's missing, and what it means for the future of conservatism. This isn't just about one bill. It's about the direction of the movement. Let's get started. At first glance, conservatives might cheer tax cuts, border security, entitlement reform, but the celebration fades fast. The bill fails key conservative tests. No permanent cuts to the Department of Government Efficiency, no real spending reductions, and no attempt to balance the budget. Instead, it exposes deep divisions within the movement. We'll examine the deficit it creates, the so-called spending cuts, and who really benefits from the tax policies. This bill is a test of priorities, and a warning about the need for real fiscal conservatism. The stakes are high for the party and the nation's financial future. Let's dig into the numbers. Here's what you need to know. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act hides a harsh reality: debt. The Penn-Wharton budget model projects a $2.8 trillion deficit increase, $3.2 trillion with dynamic effects, by 2034. That's a mountain of IOUs for future generations. This isn't a minor oversight, it's a fiscal crisis in the making. The bill mortgages our children's future for short-term gains. True conservatives believe in balanced books. This bill doesn't even try. It's a betrayal of core principles. Why are lawmakers pushing this through? The answer isn't pretty. Let's look at the numbers behind the spin. Tax cuts are popular, and this bill extends the Trump cuts, adds breaks for tips and overtime, and slashes taxes by $5 trillion. They claim repealing green energy credits offsets some costs, but the net hit is still $3.8 trillion. That's a massive hole in the budget. Proponents say growth will cover the gap, but the math doesn't add up, especially with new spending. This is magical thinking, not fiscal responsibility. Offsets are a fig leaf. The deficit grows. The government spends more, taxes less, and borrows the difference. That's a recipe for disaster. We've seen this story before. The consequences are real. Fiscal responsibility means living within our means, something this bill ignores. Adding to the national debt isn't just bad math, it's a moral failure. We're spending money that belongs to future generations. The economic fallout is predictable. Higher interest rates, less private investment, slower job growth. This isn't pro-growth, it's sabotage. The next generation will pay with higher taxes, fewer services, and less opportunity. This bill's legacy is decline, not prosperity. Conservatives must resist this path. We owe it to our children. The stakes couldn't be higher. Ballooning deficits aren't just numbers. They hit your wallet. Inflation erodes your savings and paychecks. It's a hidden tax on working families. America's global standing suffers as our debt grows. Interest payments crowd out spending on defense, infrastructure, and more. The debt becomes our master, limiting choices and weakening the nation. Fiscal conservatives know this path is unsustainable. We need real spending cuts and fiscal sanity, now. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act is a warning we can't ignore. The bill touts spending cuts. Medicaid and student loans are in the crosshairs. $800 billion from Medicaid, $330 billion from student loans. But are these real savings or just shifting costs and hopeful projections? Work requirements and repayment plans sound good, but do they make a dent in runaway spending? In context, these cuts are drops in a sea of new spending. Fiscal conservatives are right to be skeptical. The real story isn't the cuts, it's the tidal wave of new spending. Window dressing can't hide fiscal irresponsibility. The numbers don't lie, the bill's promises are drowned by its costs. While they dangle a few supposed cuts, the other hand is busy opening the spending floodgates. When Washington spends, they really spend. Massive increases in key areas completely dwarf any cuts. The net result? More spending. Much more. So much for fiscal responsibility. The net effect is a significant increase in government spending, a betrayal of the promises made to the American people, a dangerous path for our nation's financial future. Conservatives are divided over a spending plan that increases defense and border funding, but also balloons the debt. Some see it as a necessary compromise for national security. Others argue the math doesn't work and fiscal principles are violated. The movement stands at a crossroads: policy wins or fiscal discipline. In the end, this bill fails the test of responsible governance. There's an entity in Washington, relatively new, called DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. Sounds promising, doesn't it? Almost revolutionary. Its entire purpose is to hunt down and eliminate government waste, to make the federal behemoth just a little bit leaner, a little less bloated, a little more accountable to you, the taxpayer. This was supposed to be a conservative dream come true, a real effort to shrink the swamp, not just rearrange its inhabitants. Many had high hopes for DOGE and its mission. They saw it as a genuine force for good. DOGE, to its credit, actually got to work. They weren't just sitting around attending meetings. They identified real savings, concrete cuts. According to Politico, DOGE put forward a serious proposal, a package of cutbacks totaling a significant $9 billion. $9 billion. That's not pocket change, even in Washington. This wasn't about vague promises of future efficiency, it was about specific, actionable items to reduce government waste. Real money that could be saved, or better yet, returned. This was the kind of action conservatives had been demanding. The idea behind DOGE is simple, yet powerful. Government, by its very nature, tends to grow. It expands, creates new programs, new layers of bureaucracy, often without any real check on whether it's all necessary, or whether it's actually delivering value for your money. DOGE was meant to be that check, that critical eye, a permanent watchdog sniffing out inefficiency and redundancy. Its mission was to streamline operations, to make government work smarter, not just bigger but better and ideally smaller. A truly conservative goal if there ever was one. This $9 billion package from DOGE wasn't just a number. It represented a chance to prove that government could reform itself, that the endless cycle of spending could, perhaps, be broken. It was a test of Washington's seriousness about fiscal discipline. Would they embrace these common-sense cuts? Would they support the very department they created to find savings? Or would the entrenched interests, the defenders of the status quo, push back? The fate of this DOGE proposal became a key indicator, a litmus test for the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and for the conservative soul of the party. DOGE found the waste, $9 billion worth, and proposed the cuts. But the One Big Beautiful Bill Act failed to make them permanent. Instead, the cuts were left temporary, a glaring oversight. In Washington, temporary means easily reversed. The waste creeps back in. Permanent cuts would have changed the culture, made efficiency last. Instead, this failure signals that the fight for real fiscal reform is far from over. The failure to back DOGE with real spending cuts hasn't gone unnoticed. Elon Musk and other efficiency advocates are sounding the alarm. Musk says this bill undermines DOGE's mission and balloons the deficit. Fiscal hawks like Chip Roy and Thomas Massie agree, calling it fiscally reckless. They see it as a betrayal of conservative principles. The promise of a leaner, more efficient government now feels more distant than ever. A beautiful bill, not for DOGE, not for the taxpayer. Tax cuts, music to conservative ears. This bill makes the 2017 Trump tax cuts permanent, boosts the standard deduction, and eliminates federal income tax on tips and overtime pay. Families get a bigger child tax credit, and the estate tax exemption jumps to $15 million. Populist measures for many, but who really benefits? The debate over fairness is just beginning. Tax cuts for the middle class sound great. No tax on tips, overtime, and a higher standard deduction. For hardworking families, every dollar counts, and these changes promise real relief. But are these benefits truly substantial, or just crumbs to make bigger giveaways more palatable? We must ask, is this genuine help, or a sleight of hand from Washington? So, where is the real money going? The biggest benefits from the Trump tax cuts and estate tax changes go to corporations and the ultra-wealthy, not average families. Raising the estate tax exemption only helps the super-rich pass on dynastic wealth. The numbers don't lie. The wealthiest win big, while most Americans see little. It's no wonder people feel the system is rigged. What does fairness in tax policy mean for conservatives? Many believe lower taxes let people keep what they earn, fueling growth and opportunity. But as deficits and inequality rise, some ask, is it fair to give the biggest breaks to the wealthiest, while working families struggle? The One Big Beautiful Bill Act forces conservatives to weigh growth against fairness for all Americans. Entitlement reform. Those two words echo through conservative circles constantly. For decades, it's been a key goal, a necessary if difficult task. These programs designed as safety nets have grown enormous. Medicaid, providing health care for the needy. SNAP, formerly food stamps, helping put food on the table. Both are massive line items in the federal budget. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act wades into these sensitive waters. It proposes significant changes. Changes that supporters say are long overdue, but changes that will undoubtedly spark intense debate across the nation. First, let's look at Medicaid. This bill takes a big swing here. It aims to cut $800 billion from Medicaid spending. That's a huge number, no matter how you slice it. But how? A major part of the plan involves new work requirements. Starting in 2029, able-bodied adults will need to work or participate in work-related activities for at least 80 hours a month. This is a big shift. The bill also calls for tighter eligibility verification, making sure only those who truly qualify actually receive benefits. These are classic conservative approaches to welfare reform. The thinking behind these Medicaid changes is straightforward from a conservative view. It's about promoting self-sufficiency, reducing dependency on government handouts. They argue that work provides dignity, not just a paycheck, and of course it's about controlling runaway costs. Taxpayers, they say, expect their money to be spent wisely. They want to ensure that these programs are sustainable for those who genuinely cannot support themselves. These reforms are presented as a way to restore integrity to the system, a way to get Medicaid back to its original intended purpose. Then there's SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It too faces new rules under this bill. The work requirements that already exist for some SNAP recipients are being expanded. They will now apply to able-bodied adults up to age 64. This is an increase from the current age limit. Furthermore, states will be asked to contribute more to the cost of SNAP benefits. The idea here is similar to the Medicaid reforms. Encourage work, ensure that benefits are temporary for those who can work, and give states more skin in the game, hoping they'll manage the program more efficiently. The heart of these entitlement reforms lies in one core idea: work requirements. For both Medicaid and SNAP, the bill pushes this hard. Conservatives have long argued for this. They believe it fosters personal responsibility. It's about the dignity that comes from earning your own way. The argument is that welfare programs without such requirements can create a cycle of dependency, a trap that keeps people reliant on government assistance. Work requirements, they say, are a way to break that cycle. A nudge or perhaps a shove towards self-reliance. Supporters paint a picture of positive outcomes. If more people are working, welfare rolls will shrink. This means taxpayers save money. A worthy goal, certainly. More people in the workforce could also boost the economy, filling jobs that businesses struggle to fill. The individuals themselves, supporters argue, will be better off. They'll gain skills, experience, and the satisfaction of contributing. It sounds like a win-win situation, a pathway out of poverty and into productivity. This is the optimistic vision presented by those who champion these new rules. However, these work requirements are not without their critics. Even some conservatives express concerns. Are they too harsh? What about people living in areas with few job opportunities, or those who are primary caregivers for children or elderly relatives? What about individuals with undiagnosed health issues that make steady work difficult? There's a real fear that these requirements could inadvertently harm the most vulnerable, pushing people off benefits not because they won't work, but because they can't meet the specific demands. The line between encouraging work and punishing poverty can be very thin. And then there are the practical challenges of implementation. It's one thing to pass a law in Washington, it's quite another to make it work on the ground. How will states accurately track work hours for millions of people? Will there be enough funding for effective job training programs? Or for affordable childcare so parents can actually go to work? Without robust support systems, work requirements can become an exercise in frustration, a bureaucratic nightmare that fails to achieve its intended goals. The devil, as they say, is always in the details, and these details are incredibly complex. The changes to Medicaid and SNAP in this bill have ignited a fierce debate. Even within the conservative movement, opinions are sharply divided. One key question: are these reforms enough? Do they go far enough to ensure the long-term fiscal sustainability of these massive programs? Many fiscal conservatives would argue, no, not even close. They see entitlement spending as the primary driver of our national debt. And these reforms, while significant in some ways, might seem like mere tinkering around the edges to them, a small bandage on a gaping wound. These fiscal hardliners believe much deeper, more structural reforms are needed. They look at the projected growth of entitlement spending over the coming decades. And they see a fiscal cliff approaching. From their perspective, $800 billion in Medicaid cuts over 10 years, for example, is a start. But it doesn't fundamentally alter the trajectory of the program's costs. They might call for more drastic measures, block grants to states, raising eligibility ages even further, or perhaps even more stringent work requirements. For them, this bill doesn't show enough courage to tackle the real problem head-on. But then there's the other side of the conservative coin. And voices from outside conservative circles too. They worry these reforms go too far, too fast. Especially the Medicaid cuts and the expansion of SNAP work requirements to older individuals. They raise concerns about the human cost. Will these changes lead to more people without health insurance? Will older Americans, perhaps with limited job skills or health issues, be unable to find work and lose their food assistance? The potential for increased hardship, for more poverty, is a serious worry for this group. Ultimately, reforming entitlements is an incredibly challenging balancing act. How do you control costs and promote self-sufficiency without shredding the safety net for those who truly need it? This One Big Beautiful Bill Act takes a stab at it. It introduces some conservative ideas like work requirements, but it clearly hasn't found a solution that satisfies everyone. The debate over whether these reforms are sufficient or too severe will rage on. It highlights the deep divisions over the role of government and the future of America's social contract. More comprehensive solutions are still desperately needed. Amidst the storm clouds of fiscal irresponsibility, there are rays of light for conservatives. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act, despite its flaws, delivers on key promises, especially at the border. This bill allocates $46.5 billion for the wall, yes, that wall. Plus, $4 billion for more Border Patrol agents and customs officers. For many, these are long-awaited conservative victories, securing the border and American sovereignty. This bill is a win for conservatives on energy. For too long we've relied on foreign powers for our needs. This bill unleashes American resources, more drilling, mining and jobs, making us stronger and more secure. It's about powering America with American energy, putting our workers and security first. On energy and border security, these are real, tangible wins. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act, grand in name but full of contradictions. For conservatives, it's a dilemma. Some priorities shine, but fiscal discipline is shattered. Trillions in new debt, bigger government, and fleeting tax relief mostly for the wealthy. Is this truly conservative or just another bitter pill sugar-coated? This bill has some wins: border security, energy independence, and real conservative victories. But do these justify fiscal recklessness and missed opportunities? Conservatives must demand deep spending cuts, real efficiency, and a credible plan to balance the budget. We cannot settle for half measures. The fight for true fiscal discipline and limited government must continue, for ourselves and future generations.